again accompanied by Auntie now Mary and Auntie Lily, and I'm Elise again, and I'd like to welcome you to a new episode, and thank you for taking the time to watch, and for those of you who have commented or given us feedback, we appreciate each and every one of them. Today we're going to talk about communication. So last week it was a very healthy one, which was on families and the importance of having a healthy foundation in our families, right?
Yes.
And today we're going to talk about communication. And communication is fundamental in building emotional support in all our families. We like Auntie Etta said, we raise our families the way we were raised, especially for mothers. So I look forward to hearing from each and every one of us on communication. So
Yes. So thank you, Amy. Today when we think of relationship, actually we are allowing that space if we give children to communicate with us. And that depends on the ground that we have founded already, which is good. So communication is actually a two-way thing, like can be verbal or non-verbal, where children just show their what shall I say? What they think in terms of non-verbal, maybe the action, their gestures, rather than just talking. And I think that is an important thing for us parents to be understanding. They have things they cannot communicate because of their age, like Auntie Etta said in the last time. Their developmental is not ready yet to express themselves, but they will use the gestures.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And I think last time we talked about relationship in a family, and we talked about how trust goes alongside that relationship. Once a relationship is strong, then trust is built strongly in that child's heart.
Yeah.
And so if trust is there, then a child feels free to come and talk to their parent about things that are bothering them, things that anything makes them happy,
Yes.
makes them sad.
Yeah.
And so, and like you said, the parent then, because of that relationship, is able to pick up on, maybe their whole demeanor is downward today. So that nonverbal gesture.
Yes.
Communication is very important. As a family, we have different personalities. We have different temperaments.
Yeah.
Some are introverts and some are extroverts.
Right. Yeah.
And, communication plays a vital role to build or to have a healthy family relationship. So, effort should be directed to having, communication, good communication skills in our respective families.
I have a cousin of mine who has 8 children. So what she says is, I deal with 8 different personalities.
Yes.
Yeah. She said it's, a lot of people, the only thing people comment on is the number of the many children that she has. But what she says is, I deal with 8 different personalities.
Yeah.
So,
And it takes time to learn those.
Yes.
I'm wondering, Amy, if you can share, last week you learned some things about the young ages of children taking drugs.
Yes.
If you can share a little bit of that, and then we link that to how important communication is with the parents.
Right. So I attended a meeting last week. These were all service providers for gender-based violence, and so we had different CSOs, stakeholders, sitting in one room talking about what you're doing, your very work, and how it should help us all as a nation. And it was shocking, and I shared it this morning. It was shocking the number of children. We're not talking about adults anymore. The number of children who are being tested positive now. So for HIV, and this is and what Bluetooth. I mean, I haven't sat down with anybody from narcotics or been in an awareness where you get to hear how this is really done. Yeah? You're just reading from whatever you're shared on Facebook.
You just hearsay.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
So, and that's made me want to know more about it. So, from the Ministry of Health, what they talked about was the amount of children that are being tested positive right now because of that Bluetooth.
Can you explain Bluetooth?
So Bluetooth is when they inject themselves, they inject themselves and then withdraw it only to inject someone else. Yes. So we all know, I mean, the usage of needles, that's how HIV is being spread. So this is how it's been done now. And children are not hiding anymore. They're being chased like in town, or they're not scared to do it anymore to be caught. So that's one thing that it's alarming.
How many cases per week?
About 5 per week.
Under the age?
Under the age of 16.
Tested positive for HIV. And you were saying the youngest?
The youngest that the Ministry of Health has already highlighted is a child at the age of 10.
Okay, so can we just park that? So Etta, what would you suggest then as far as families talking about, because drugs in the country now is at a really scary rate. So between drugs, forced sex, and all that leads from that, STIs, HIV, and 10 years old being the youngest case, what should families do with communication?
Well, I'll just bring us back to Homes of Hope Foundation. We see ourselves, first of all, as a ministry. Secondly, as an organization. And thirdly,
A family.
we see ourselves as a family, first of all.
Yeah.
As a family. First and foremost, as a family, as a ministry, and as an organization. Talking about this subject, this is not a subject that we usually talk about in the context of a family, let alone for sex.
Yeah.
What, our mandate here at Homes of Hope. If I were to speak on a personal level, family is very important. It doesn't matter whether you're a solo parent, right?
Yeah.
You can do it. You can
Yes.
hold it together.
Yes.
And if I just wish to share some of the experiences of the social ill, one that has just been highlighted, where drugs is involved, and then what we do at Homes of Hope for sex. I'll always bring it back to our topic for today, which is healthy communication. Children should be made aware that their mistakes do not define them.
Yeah.
Right? And Auntie Lynn, in our last episode in marriage, shared about trust.
Yeah.
And trust should be reciprocal. Parents expect their children to trust them, and vice versa. Parents should also trust their children. Reciprocal. Parents give commands and want to be heard. They too should be at a position, no matter the age, should be at a position to be able to listen to their children.
So along those lines then, if you have a 10-year-old who's going to school and their friends are injecting drugs, then how would because this is a taboo subject, right?
Exactly.
So how would you encourage a family to listen to their 9-year-old, 10-year-old who comes home saying these things? Hey, I just tried this. I tried putting a needle in my arm, or my friends are doing this. How would you have that communication?
We're living at a time, things have changed.
Yes.
So you cannot be riding on a horse to go market when we have the bus and our respective vehicles, right? And if you do that, you are seen to be something that needs attention, right? And we as parents need, with time and age, need to have the necessary skills. First of all, to be able to have the clear communication lines with the family.
Yeah.
Should also have the set of skills. Should we have the lenses to be able to look for indicators.
Okay, good.
from our children.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that is where open and honest communication comes in,
Yeah.
especially. Once we have that relationship, as we have discussed in the last episode, here we are talking about the open and honest communication within and outside of the home. Because I think, as Madam Etta rightly said, the time has changed, but parents out there need to learn the skills in order to combat this kind of, or to prevent children from being injected. Or say, for example, what if your child comes in today and said, yes, I am, oh ma'am, I had something today. And we'll be asking the parents, so what can you do?
Right.
Those are the kinds of things, given an indication to the child that she cares for the child. So that's where the communication starts to happen.
And so I think to be really practical, so if we're talking about the age that we're in, drugs are happening and HIV found in 10-year-olds here in this nation, then that means that we as parents need to develop listening skills where we pick up on little things that they say, hey, and then you also develop questioning skills. So, hey, I just heard you mention something about a needle. What were you talking about? And you question them further and you try to pull out that information. What do you think, Amy?
Yeah. I talked about this in the last episode. Most of the time it's a struggle being able to go home and switch hats from being a working person to becoming a parent, and sometimes you go home with all of that and you don't realize that your child can be telling you something, but you're just still in work mode, that you don't get to see what they're really trying to tell you.
Or hear.
Yes, or hear it. So a couple of times I've come across that, where my daughter doesn't even have to say anything. My 11-year-old doesn't have to say. She'll just walk in and say, "Oh, okay, I'll come back," and then I get to feel guilty, that I don't even have to say it, but she can tell by the way I'm looking that it's not a good time. So she puts me on a spot, So.
I just want to share one example. So I've talked to actually my grandchildren. And so my grandchildren, I have the eldest, and then there's obviously the youngest. And so times have changed so rapidly here that what the youngest is now experiencing at her school is so different from what the eldest experienced just a few years ago.
Yes.
And the things that she's seeing written on the bathroom walls with actual porn web addresses written on the toilet walls in primary school with actual images drawn in child's drawing. This eldest one never experienced anything like that. But if this youngest one doesn't have a relationship where she trusts her mom to be able to say, "Mom, I just saw this, what is this?" then chances are this youngest one would go the wrong way. But because she has this beautiful communication and relationship and trust, then they've had incredible conversations about, this is what it is, this is what you do about that. So that's the key.
It's very important to nurture that aspect where there's a free communication lines, because it's inevitable.
Yes.
It's inevitable. Once your daughter or your son walks out of the door, you cannot control what they see, who they are with, who they continually associate themselves with. And that's very important. They should be able to come back home and just blah to you as a parent.
Yes.
And you should be able to accommodate that and have solutions.
Yes, right there.
Or just listen. Or just listen.
Yes, just listen.
Yes.
And that will be a solution in itself when you take the time to listen.
Yes.
Yeah, so communication at the end of the day, and at the end of this episode, communication is very, very important. Don't just listen, but hear the message within our families. It's important. Communication is important in our families because it's about emotional support, and so we're not professionals. No, we're not.
No.
But just because of the line of work that we're in and life, being parents, being mothers, we're able to share this with you, and feel free to comment on the comment box and tell us some things that you may be facing. But for now, from Homes of Hope, please remember we're on Facebook, on Instagram, LinkedIn, and of course the videos on YouTube. We'd like to say more there from Wailoku and Vinaka Papaleo.
Okay.